And to y'all, happy Tuesday, April 6th edition of the Vote Common Good podcast. It's Tuesday, which means Doug Pagitt and Robb Ryerse get to pair up in a little dynamic duo of political common goodery and conversation on the Vote Common Good podcast that we do on a weekdaily basis. We like to invite you to have a common good attitude about this world we live in, including our politics. We think politics can be something more than just my side, your side. But I'll tell you, it has been difficult in these last 4 years, my friend Robb. We've all struggled with it. We've all said to ourselves, boy, I wish we could bridge the divide. I wish we could, have something that feels like it's a coming together in this nation. But it is increasingly difficult, isn't it, to find something. But we're going to call you to that, and ourselves. A lot of times, Robb, you and I both being in the pastoring profession for a number of decades, we recognize that most preachers, they preach sermons that are helpful to them, right?
Yes.
That's
yes.
sort of rule one.
Yes, the good preachers preach to themselves first.
And I feel like that's kind of what we do in our, with our call to common good politics, right? We're trying to say, maybe there's a better way. Maybe there's another way forward. So we'd love for you to tell us where you are. I'm in Minneapolis. I am standing up today because sitting is the new smoking, Robb. That's what I hear from Dan Dietrich, our producer, has the day off today. And we'd love to know where you're all coming from. So tell us where you are, what you're doing. If you're watching in the comments on the video stream, tell us in the comment section. If you just listen to this, send us an email. We love to get these over at podcast@votecommongood.com. Tell us where you listen to the Vote Common Good daily podcast. And Robb, where do you find yourself today, and what are you doing? You seem like you're in a similar setting.
Yeah, I'm in my office in beautiful Fayetteville, Arkansas. The sun is shining. Things are bright. It's the couple of days after Easter, and I didn't eat too much Easter candy, so I feel pretty good about that. But I mean, it's not all gone yet, so that still could change.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, stayed up too late last night rooting against Baylor, and purely for political reasons, because.
What'd you have against the young kids from the Baylor school?
Well, I have nothing against the young kids from Baylor, but just the university as a whole, just kind of icky. When Ken Starr is your president for, it just makes you feel a little. Would you like to hear my observation that I made during the March Madness, the NCAA men's tournament?
Sure.
Coaches from Christian universities, particularly Abilene Christian, Oral Roberts University, and Baylor.
And I think
even the guy from Liberty all wore their masks incorrectly throughout the whole game, like all the time. Never
they had
put
just over their ears and then down with their
down on
Abraham
their chin,
Lincoln
like
look.
Like the beard mask. None of them, coaches from universities that are not religiously affiliated state schools, such as the University of Arkansas, which went to the Elite Eight and, lost to the eventual champion Baylor Bearcats.
Bears?
Baylor Bears. I don't even know what their mascot is. Wore their mask correctly, but it was the coaches of Christian universities, Abilene Christian, Baylor, Oral Roberts University, I think Liberty, didn't wear their mask correctly.
That is heck of a find there.
That's
you run a spreadsheet on that? Did you put together a screenshot, throw them into a spreadsheet, and run some numbers?
Yeah, should have documented that. Yeah, it's just a little observation. I might be completely wrong, but it was just something I noticed.
These big universities like Baylor and maybe Abilene Christian, like the Division I sports universities. Do you know, do they maintain any kind of a Christian university identity? I went to a college, now it's a university that's totally a Christian university, Bethel University. They sell themselves that way. Does Baylor and these others, or do they, maybe Oral Roberts, of course, it's going to, but the others do as well, huh? Baylor
has chapel for their students. There was a there was it was a bit of a controversy. I think sometime last year before COVID hit, that there was a speaker in chapel at Baylor whose name is now escaping me, who often speaks about being Christian from a Native American perspective, and she was heckled during chapel, and yeah, it was quite a controversy, a bit ago. But yeah, Baylor maintains its Christian identity. It's and when you've got Chip and Joanna Gaines so close, it's good stuff happening. I guess
that young couple from HGTV fame,
and national champion. Baylor University.
National champion, yeah. I look, yesterday on this podcast with Dan, I was saying I just don't follow sports, don't really care, don't watch it. And then last night, you know what I went off and did?
Did you watch the game?
Watch the game.
Ooh, it wasn't a great game.
No. You know what it's like? I don't know. I played college basketball, and it's just like every other college basketball game is what I've sort of realized, in every other championship game and all of that. Did you happen to see the opening little video with John Hamm?
I did not. I came in.
It was very well done. It's worth, I don't know, I'm sure it's available on Google and all. They tried to basically say, don't feel like this is not worth watching just because, there's no one there, and there'll be some excitement in the place. But they did a nice little bit. It did feel to me a little bit like, boy, it's nice to feel the coming back to some of the things that we haven't been able to experience that a lot of us have liked. This weekend was very warm in Minneapolis. People were sitting outside at cafes. Enjoying their meals, and people were in a stadium watching people perform athletic feats for their entertainment.
My church gathered for the first time in person on Sunday for Easter Sunday. We were outdoors, masked up, socially distant, but it was the first time in over a year that we had been together.
And am I right to have seen on some of the social medias that your church had a bit of a dead crowd around it? There was a bit of a.
That's right. We had our Easter service in a cemetery because that's where the story takes place. Where. And
look, my friend, genius. Never dawned on me a day of my 30 plus years of doing that kind of thing that we would do it in a cemetery, because it seems like nobody else is coming out of their graves.
That's right.
And we actually find an empty one, you call someone.
We did it in a place called Oak Cemetery in South Fayetteville. That was a cemetery that was purchased by freed slaves, and it was the Black Cemetery in Fayetteville during the time of segregation, when Black people were not allowed to be buried next to white people. And so there is a whole host of really fascinating people buried there, including Fayetteville's first Black police officer, a poet who came to national prominence after Woodrow Wilson died, and he wrote a poem about Woodrow Wilson praising him, ironically enough. And former slaves, and Fayetteville's matriarchs, and really a wonderful thing. And nobody knew the stories. And it's not a well-known place. It's not something that everybody knows about. I just kind of stumbled onto it, did some research, and found out about it, and thought, oh, this is a perfect place for us to have our Easter gathering. Yeah, it was really nice.
Well done. Well, I'm glad you're getting back into the flow. I hope it happens all over. Hey, I don't watch, Rob, a lot of late night comedy television, but I did see through the internets a couple of Jimmy Kimmel bits that I pulled the video for that we can look at today, because we're going to talk about a couple things in our Common Good politics calling us to the Common Good politics. Sometimes the behavior of politicians makes it hard, right? We should just acknowledge that right out of the chutes, right? Sometimes it makes it easy for some of us, right? Sometimes our politicians call us to the better angels of our nature, and it lifts our spirits, and we say yes to that person, and we're ready to go. And other times, boy, they make it tough. There was a fundraising letter that former president and losing presidential candidate and twice impeached President Donald Trump, sent out this week. Did you happen to see this one where he said, "I want to wish a happy Easter to everyone in America, including the radical left who want to destroy America." And I mean, every possible moment, this guy will dig himself into a lower echelon of how to behave as a public figure. It's
I read it and turned to my wife and said, I read it and turned to my wife Vanessa and said, "Hey, the former president just wished us a happy Easter." Because we're part of the radical left that's trying to destroy the country.
Yes,
stole the election.
I mean, I heard an audio clip, which I don't have to play for you, where he was giving a toast at a wedding at Mar-a-Lago, which is often referred to as, bedbug infested Mar-a-Lago. But he's giving a toast. Did you hear it? And going into the toast, he said, "It's really good to be here. I really shouldn't be here. I should have won, but they stole the election." Like, in the toast to the couple, he goes on and on about what he considers to be and the impossibility of him losing. And he literally says, "I was told that if I got 64 million votes, there's no way I could lose. I got 74 million. How could I have lost?" So his advisors said, "Hey, all we need to do is get your number 2 million higher than it was in 2016 and you're going to win." So he fixates on that, like some kid promised that, we're going to be home in 5 minutes on a car trip. And he's sitting in the back counting every second to get to 5 minutes and then starts yelling, "We're not home yet." And they're like, "That's not how it works. Your advisor's telling you what your projected number, because the other guy got 82 million. That's why you didn't win the election." So
There's a turnout
he
thing.
just continues to make it hard to pursue common good politics because he just does it over and over and over.
Yeah, this is such a common thing in politics where candidates, figure out what their win number is, and there's different formulas that you do that, and trying to figure it out. And it was really fascinating. I worked with a number of candidates in the 2020 election who had figured out their win numbers in their, particularly in the Democratic primary. I think of one candidate in particular that I worked with in New York City, whose win number was 12,000 votes. That if she was able to get to 12,000 votes, she was going to win. And that's based on historical projections and what turnout was and everything. Do you know what the winner in that race got?
How many?
40,000 votes. 40,000. I mean, my friend, this candidate hit her win number. She hit her win number. But nobody factored in how tremendously big turnout was going to be, not just in the Democratic primary, but in the presidential election, in the general election in November as well. And you can set a win number that's a target, but if the other guy gets more than that, you still lose.
That's right. That's not how it works. Right? You still lose.
You're not just trying to beat your personal best. You have to win the race.
Yes, you have to beat the other person, not the projection. Politicians make it hard. We won't spend the whole time picking on old Donald Trump because that's just exhausting. But it is a good reminder, just that the conditions, even though we're in another administration at the presidential level, have not changed. We still have a whole movement that is squawking about irregularities and difficulties and basically untruths over and over. Here's a montage put together by Jimmy Kimmel of Donald Trump during the campaigns, regularly saying to his supporters at rallies that if Joe Biden wins the election, it's going to be cataclysmic. And he goes on a rant about there not being holidays anymore. Now, I'm not entirely sure if he's trying to say because he can't beat COVID, if that's what his argument is, or if all these holidays are actually Christian and because the radical socialist anti-God left are going to take all of your holidays away. both of which he has said on a regular basis. So this montage of him saying to his supporters that holidays are going to be gone is, I'm not sure exactly what his setup for these is, but here's a couple of things to note. One is, this is the kind of fear-mongering that goes on. If you have family members or others that find it hard to trust you because you are deemed as the socialist radical left, then just know that they're getting that from somewhere, and they're getting it from their political leader. So if we're going to have a common good politics, we got to figure out some way to respond to this kind of stuff, even though it's nonsense. The other thing I think worth noting is how on script Donald Trump stays over and over and over. He goes to these rallies and says the same thing time after time after time. He's just memorized a script. It's so curious that he's pitched as the kind of politician who is, honest and just straight from the gut and all. And then you watch him and you're like, oh my gosh, no, he's running a shtick. So here it is, the former president telling everyone that if he loses the election, you don't get to have any more holidays.
Under Biden, there will be no school, no graduations, no weddings, no Thanksgiving, no Easter, no Christmas, no 4th of July, no nothing. There will be no school, no graduations, no weddings, no Thanksgivings, no Easters, no Christmases. No Thanksgiving, no Easter, no Christmas. No Thanksgiving, no Christmas, no Easter. There will be no school, no graduations, no weddings, no Thanksgiving, no Christmas, no 4th of July, no Easter, no nothing. No Christmas, no Easter, no 4th of July, and no future.
I mean, it's really
I just
something,
want to correct
isn't it?
one thing that you said, Doug. You said he's memorized this speech. No, he hasn't. He's reading off a teleprompter there. You could tell by his body movements where he shifts from this teleprompter screen to this teleprompter screen and doesn't stop in the middle. He's clearly reading off a teleprompter. What makes me laugh is the different orders, because it's a stump speech. Stump speeches don't change. This is a thing that politicians do. They have speechwriters who come up with a stump speech, which is that speech that you give over and over and over again. When I ran for Congress, I gave my stump speech verbatim hundreds of times. My campaign manager and my wife used to say to me, hey, do you think you could say something different? Because they were so sick of hearing it. Mm-hmm. But what makes me laugh about those clips is that he changes the order. Sometimes he mentions Thanksgiving, Easter, no Christmas, no 4th of July. And sometimes it's no 4th of July, no Easter, no Thanksgiving.
Yeah, he's trying to keep
Christmas.
it fresh. Stephen Miller's like, hey, let's keep this thing fresh. Let's reverse Thanksgiving and Easter this time.
We should go in chronological order here with holidays, shouldn't we?
I mean, and listen, Stephanie is making a good point on Facebook. She says, the irony is, during the final year of Trump's presidency, we didn't get to celebrate a lot of those things. That's the irony. Good call, Stephanie. Nice find. Those are the ones that we're missing from it all. What were you gonna say though, Rob?
I was just gonna say, big surprise that on Sunday we celebrated Easter and Joe Biden was president.
As it turns out, we should just all be thankful that we got to have an Easter at all. I mean, wow. The cataclysm that comes. And this is a good reminder, right, that the kind of fear-mongering that we all benefit from, it happens on all issues. Someone is going to raise it. Both sides of an issue will move into it. It's long-term very detrimental. It doesn't work, right? It's not only does it hurt the populace, but it's just not functional. It's not a way to move forward. So if you ever find yourself drifting into these kind of cataclysmic narratives of how bad it will be. Now, as I like to remind myself, having said that, the Trump years were particularly harsh and damaging, especially to people of color in this country, especially to migrants. We're even seeing it more to the Asian population, that his kind of rhetoric and talk really was especially damaging. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that means that Democrats couldn't also traffic in damaging narratives. And we really do have to work hard to watch ourselves and to notice when someone's using this kind of fear-mongering. Now, it should be obvious, right, that a guy is saying there will be no future, there will be no weddings, love will cease to exist, is not true. But did you hear in those clips how the crowd played along with it, right? Mm-hmm. They know you're not taking this literally. This is not a literal argument that Easter's not going to happen. It is somehow saying that which matters to you is going to be taken away by these people. This is what makes bridging the divide so difficult. A lot of times in any kind of apology that someone gives, and any kind of reconciling or any kind of reckoning that has to happen when someone's caught behaving in ways that are wrong to their morals and harmful to others, people will often say, you really do have to do something more than just say sorry. Like, you have to build some kind of repentance into it. There has to be some kind of confession that goes on that acknowledges. This is what makes the bridging the divide difficult. Rob, Shelley and I watched the Lincoln documentary series on CNN. Did you happen to catch any of that?
Haven't seen it yet,
four or five part. It was quite helpful for a lot of things. One of the places that struck me as difficult now in hindsight is how at the end of the Civil War, the agreement to just bring the Confederates back in, to bring the South back in with no consequence, with no punishment, with no senators losing their role in the Senate, no generals being banned from ever running for office. There was not a reckoning. There was like a hey, this was a family fight. The numbers of people that died is just extraordinary. Like I think as a nation, we have not really come to grips with how much this country has been rooted from the 1760s and the 1860s and 1960s into just unbelievable death narratives. But we didn't really ever reconcile this thing. This lost cause narrative just was passed along. And then when Reconstruction happened, when you start getting into the 1880s, 1890s, that's why there was such power. So it's one of the things that makes coming back together difficult, is that if you just walk away and say, okay, we won't continue to fight about it anymore, but there's never a recognition that a wrong was had, or that a truth can now be understood. I don't know. It feels to me like that's a real split, and that's what it seems like is happening to me in conversations about politics these days. Is that neither side ever owns up, and right now in the last 15 years, it's in my view Republicans that have just wreaked unbelievable damage on this democracy, and there seems to be no reckoning for it at all. They even win more elections than they did before. So it really makes you wonder.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, part of, I think you're absolutely right with all of that. And part of, I think, what this, particularly, talking about Christmas and Easter and like the religious holidays, is that there's a certain kind of dog whistle here that voters who are white evangelicals, most likely, who, go to church and have developed, a bit of a persecution mentality. Mm-hmm. Like, this feeds right into it. There are Christians out there who believe that the church in America is being persecuted, that persecution is only going to increase, that there are people actively working to take away their religious liberty, to take away their ability to go to church. There's many people who believe that the COVID restrictions that included, not gathering in church buildings for worship services was direct persecution against, in an effort by a secular humanist government to take away the opportunity for Christians to live out their faith. And so this kind of fear mongering plays into a mentality. It's almost like a confirmation bias of like, I think I'm going to be persecuted. I think I'm going to be persecuted. And now, boom,
Yeah,
here
there
comes
you go.
Donald Trump saying you're going to be persecuted. And, you know, and here's how he's going to take Easter away.
Yeah, it's really something. We are going to have this session tonight, our first of 4 webinars on the dangers of Christian nationalism, the threat of Christian nationalism in the United States, which was seen so profoundly by the insurrection on January 6th. Like it really came to the surface. It was like the waters like the tide had gone out, and we saw how big the landmass of Christian nationalism is, this sandbar that so many people stand on. And our content professional tonight is named Catherine Stewart. She's written a book called Power Worshippers. And we recorded the interview that's going to be shown tonight the other day, and she reads a section out of her book from the period of the Christian community supporting slavery in the 1860s. And the language that they use, she reads this quote, which I'll paraphrase, is, "This is not just an argument between the abolitionists and the pro-slavery people. This is really a battle between the God-following people versus the socialists, the communists, the atheists, those full of hatred." It's word for word the same stuff that you hear today. So there's this black and white contrast that is set out, that one group is on the side of God and the other group is not. And the irony and the pain of all of this, in my mind, is it's precisely the opposite. The Christian nationalist perspective is the furthest thing you can get. It's almost anti-Christian perspective, in my view, because it fundamentally wants to place Christians above everyone else. When the QAnon shaman and the others broke into the Senate dais and they pray the prayer, which we'll also show in the webinar tonight, and it's recorded. This prayer is recorded, and they say, "Thank you, Jesus, for allowing us to show the globalists, the communists, the socialists, that this is not their country, that this country belongs to us," praying in Jesus' name. This thing is what so many people believe, that it's fundamentally a country that belongs to the Christians who follow God, and everyone else either needs to repent or step back or get out, right?
Right.
The go home call, this kind of thing, this is what makes it hard, that we're really battling a long-held, this didn't just start in the 1950s, this didn't just start in the 1860s, this goes all the way back to the founding narratives in this land that this country is on, and the founding of this nation. So it's a lot. All of that to say, if you want to join us tonight at 7 p.m. Central Time, you can figure out your own time zones from there. I know we have people here from the UK and others that are watching. We'd love to have you join us, because Christian nationalism isn't just a threat in the United States. Religious nationalism is actually one of the pervading threats all around the world. And look, I don't know if you want to say something about that, Rob, but if we're going to cancel anything, I think we should have a real movement to cancel Christian nationalism. Like, that is a viewpoint that really, really should be put on your do not resubscribe list, right? This morning I got some notifications from my Apple account that I have 4 subscriptions that are going to renew, and I can decide what to do with them. You should go on to the Christian nationalism subscription in the mind of American citizens and click cancel my subscription. We don't want this one anymore. It really does need to be sort of attacked and taken on.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Hey, let me show you a little thing on cancel culture, also from our friend Jimmy Kimmel. It was all in the same monologue. That guy's kind of funny. I should probably start watching some more Jimmy Kimmel. All right, so this is a little bit where he's doing a thing about this cancel culture, which came out of the fact that, and this is a good conversation point for us, that Georgia passed a law, to a series of ordinances and laws to update their voting process and to make their voting process, they would say, more safe, and I would say, as many others have, less accessible. And anytime you make voting less accessible, even for some rationale of integrity, you've really got to justify why you've made it less accessible, like less places to vote, less drop boxes, less frequently accessible. Even if you did other things to make it more accessible, if you also did things to make it less accessible, you should have to answer for that, right? It's if you start locking up part of the voting process, you should have to answer for that. So the number of corporations, including Major League Baseball, said, hey, we're a private company. Private companies can do whatever we want to do, and we're going to decide that, no, we don't want to participate with the state of Georgia right now if this is going to be their attitude. So they canceled the All-Star baseball game, which was scheduled to be there.
Moved it to Denver.
And moved it to another one, moved it to another place. So good for Denver, right? They get whatever benefits you're going to get during a COVID-restricted period of time for fans. But anyway, they did. So this has become a new battle cry around cancel culture and what should be being canceled or not. And Jimmy Kimmel does this little bit about how Donald Trump was saying to people, stop going to baseball games, like punish. Here's the irony, right? You can't use cancel culture, the claim goes, by taking the All-Star game away from Atlanta because that's canceling baseball. That's canceling Georgia. And the response to that is boycott baseball and boycott Coca-Cola and boycott Delta Airlines. Any of these companies who wanted to use their own voice to say many of our employees live in Georgia because this is where our headquarters are. So we think this is a really bad law, and we're going to speak out about the fact that we think it's a bad law. And then they're saying, Donald Trump and crowd, you should cancel your subscriptions, your flight, your purchasing power for Coca-Cola. And so Jimmy Kimmel does this a little bit about Donald Trump.
Because with all his complaining about cancel culture, this guy has tried to cancel more culture than anybody ever. If you listen to Donald Trump, you'd have to cancel baseball, Coke, Delta Airlines, Viacom CBS, Citigroup, Cisco, UPS, Apple, Macy's, Univision, HBO, Oreo, Rolling Stone, Fox News, Starbucks, Geico, Goodyear, Amazon, AT&T, the NFL, T-Mobile, Harley-Davidson, Nike, Comcast, and Merck, which happens to make Propecia, the drug Donald Trump takes to slow his balding down. What are the chances that Donald Trump actually gives up Diet Coke or his bald head medicine? None. But he wants you to.
Under Biden, there will be no school.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so just roll into the next greatest hits. So cancel culture is a thing. What are your thoughts on it? You know, in the political spaces and all.
Yeah, well, I have a couple of thoughts. One is this is the same group of people that when there are laws passed which require businesses that are open to the public to serve the whole public and to not discriminate against people based on their sexual orientation, their gender identity, their race or ethnicity. This is the same group of people that will scream and cry about religious liberty. And if I am a cake shop owner, I shouldn't have to bake a cake for a gay couple. Or as the law was passed here in Arkansas, that if I am a doctor, I shouldn't have to violate my conscience by treating patients that I find morally reprehensible, such as women seeking abortions or transgender persons seeking medical help. And so, you know, it's so frustrating that like these folks who will scream and cry about how private businesses should be able to do what they want to do, you know, also scream and cry when private businesses do what they want to do. And I guess probably the counter to that is, and they have every right to do that, and I have every right not to patronize them. Sure, that's That's absolutely true. But really, do you want to drink Pepsi? Come on. Pepsi is nowhere near. Come on. Like, come on. Really.
So in your mind, the cola wars were settled and Pepsi was the lost cause.
Clear loser. Yeah, absolutely. And so that's frustrating. Jimmy Kimmel points out, the hypocrisy of Donald Trump with, continuing to use his hair medication and drink his Diet Cokes. There was even a picture that was put out yesterday by Stephen Miller, the white nationalist, particularly reprehensible former advisor to the former president, meeting with him at his office at allegedly bedbug infested Mar-a-Lago, and they're sitting at a large desk, which looks to try to emulate the Resolute desk from the Oval Office. And Stephen Miller is standing next to Donald Trump, and everything is laid out nicely on the desk to show Donald Trump is working hard. And you can see off behind the phone, you can just like a little game of Where's Waldo. You can make out that right over there is a 20-ounce plastic Diet Coke bottle. And even Donald Trump, while he's encouraging us to cancel Coke and boycott Coke because of what they're doing, he is still drinking his Diet Coke yesterday.
You think Mar-a-Lago's catering and a restaurant is going to cancel that contract that they have with Diet Coke? No. There's not a chance.
No.
Yeah. This and look, I don't know what I think about cancel culture, right? I don't think we should have to make every purchase be held under the scrutiny of who is the person that owns the company and what's their political view, right? Sometimes I want to go to Home Depot rather than Lowe's. Sometimes I'm going to order things through Amazon, even though Jeff Bezos' pay scale is like, I don't know at what point a reasonable person could vet every moving part. So you're always going to get this hypocrisy, right? But sometimes something rises to the level, right? So I know people that won't eat certain donuts and they won't go to certain chicken places because it's really particular to them. They feel like, I don't want to find myself in association in partnership with that. But I'm not sure every purchase that every person makes, should be held to the scrutiny of what kind of a political sleepwalker are you if you dare to eat this, drink that, purchase these things. It's difficult. And then to hear a politician like Mitch McConnell say yesterday, corporations should just stay out of politics, which just to poke me in the proverbial eye that I hate more than anything. Anytime somebody says X person should stay out of politics, right? Be it, you're an entertainer. What do you have to say about politics? You're an actor.
Dribble.
You're shut up and dribble. Who do you think you are to tell other citizens of the United States that because of your job, your profession, your skill set, you don't have a right to participate in our public conversation of our civic life together in our politics? That argument, which comes up over and over, why don't these people just stay out? And then what? Leave politics to the non-citizens, to non-we the people? This argument to stay out. So I feel torn between cancel culture and how could you possibly navigate in a world, and the other side, which is, well, if you stay out, if your company stays out, if your business stays out, then what do you do? And that leads me to this larger question about campaign finance, right? Because we hear this a lot. And I do not agree with the Supreme Court's take that corporations should function like individuals and it's just free speech. And just as you and I have the right to say something, a corporation can spend its money to express its opinion. I think we should look at corporations slightly differently in their political free speech. and their spending than others around campaigns, for sure. But I don't want anyone being told in this country, you don't get to talk. You don't get to express your opinion, whether you're a small company of 2 people, whether you're a sole proprietorship, or whether you're a big old global reach kind of company. I don't know how we make sense of all this. Do you have any answers to that? Because I feel like as we pursue the common good, it's so easy to sort of go after certain people and say they should be set aside, others should not.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, the situation we have right now in terms of campaign finance and how all of that works, and particularly the role that the big corporations play in all of that. I don't disagree with you when you say, we shouldn't, that everyone should have a voice. The problem I think that we have right now is that the system is set up to give the big corporations a voice that is so loud and so influential that drowns out those who are smaller and can't keep up. There's an inequity in how it works right now. And some would say, well, maybe that inequity should exist because, Apple or Facebook or whoever, Lowe's has so much more money and so many more customers than, a smaller chain, or let alone a mom and pop. They should have a bigger voice. I think things have swung way out of proportion. So I think the problem we need to solve for is how do we bring more equity into it rather than how. I think that's more the problem than some people have a voice and some people don't. Big corporations might lose their voice. No, but maybe we need to amplify the voices of others. So now in terms of cancel culture, this is every once in a while a phrase or something enters into our vocabulary. In 2020, it was phrases like social distancing. That was a phrase. Come on, not a single person said that phrase before 2020.
Yeah,
and we
now actually
a part
fought
of our
about it. Remember that? It's like, don't socially distance, physically distance, but stay socially connected. Remember all that back a year ago? We were all trying to navigate whether even social distancing could be the thing.
Yeah. No, socially distance had already hooked on. You can't change it. Yeah. And so, I think it feels to me like cancel culture is that phrase for 2021 that if I never hear the phrase cancel culture ever again, I will be totally fine with it. It is another one of these, it feels to me like another one of these dog whistles that feeds into the persecution mindset that exists out there. And there's so many of these Republicans that are saying things like, well, they're deriding cancel culture because they don't want consequences for what they say or do. Looking at you, Matt Gaetz. And they, at the same time, want to boycott or whatever the corporations and businesses that the sporting leagues that don't do what they want them to do, don't do what they want them to do. And it's just, I'm just so very tired of it already. And, it's only April.
Yeah, look, I'm telling you, and it's one of those big free speech periods and arguments. This has come up other times in our society, and it's back now. It's a real thing for people to ask themselves, who has the freedom to speak? What does that speaking look like? How do you get to do it? The notion that we're struggling with free speech is a very real struggle for us in all the things that we, that we deal with in our society. It's no doubt. Well, Rob,
Can we talk
yeah.
about Matt Gaetz for a second?
Sure. You know what? I'm going to let you, Rob, go on a little tangent here talking about Robb Gaetz because I have to go check something. Matt Gaetz. What did I just say?
Robb Gaetz.
Robb Gaetz. Rob, I'm going to let you talk about Matt Gaetz. I need to go check on something that's happening behind me. So you have at it.
All right, this is very exciting. So Matt Gaetz, the congressman from Florida, has been in the news recently. I remember once that Doug and I were walking through the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C., visiting some Congress people, and we saw Matt Gaetz down the hallway, and Doug leaned over to me and said, "I'm a totally nonviolent person, and I really want to go punch that guy." And thankfully he didn't, but that always made me laugh. But Matt Gaetz, congressman from Florida, has been in the news. This is a guy. He looks a little bit like Beavis from Beavis and Butthead. He's the guy who wore the gas mask on the floor of the House of Representatives to make fun of people who were taking the coronavirus seriously. He has been one of Donald Trump's biggest supporters in the House of Representatives, and he finds himself in the midst of a tremendous scandal related to a relationship he had with a 17-year-old girl, allegedly, that in which he might have taken her across state lines and could be technically guilty of sex trafficking. Ironically enough, the QAnon folks who worry about children being trafficked, one of their biggest champions is being investigated for that. There's also allegations that now that he has been on websites which provide for escort services, that he that he took advantage of, and including taking ecstasy during those encounters. And so there's all of these kind of salacious scandal things that are happening with Matt Gaetz. And I got to tell you, the thing I find most egregious, and I cannot believe it's not a bigger deal, is that one of the allegations against Matt Gaetz is that he was showing nude pictures and videos of women that he had relations with to people on the floor of the House of Representatives. And this is absolutely stunning to me. Number one, why is that not a standalone scandal on its own? Why was, whatever congressman he's showing those videos to, like, why didn't they say something immediately?
Yes.
Every single congressman needs to answer the question, did Matt Gaetz show you naked pictures of women, naked videos of women on the floor of the House of Representatives? And if the answer is yes, the next question needs to be, why did you not say something publicly about it? Right. Because in every single workplace in America, there is not a workplace in our country where if you show nude videos or nude pictures of another person to a coworker, you will be fired that day. Very day.
Maybe not Playboy Incorporated, but yes, I get your point. Yes, any non-trafficking in that business. Good point.
Thanks for giving the exception that only proves the rule.
Yes, that's right.
This is only acceptable if you work at Playboy.
There you go.
So this scandal with Matt Gaetz, and there's much that's gonna have to play out with this. But the notion that this particular aspect of it is just kind of an asterisk. It's just kind of an afterthought. It's all the big headlines are the escorts and the sex trafficking and that kind of stuff, and not the egregious, immediately fireable offense that implicates not just him, but every person that he showed those pictures and videos to. It infuriates me.
Yeah, well, I think you're right to be infuriated, Rob. Good for you. And I've heard that the people who knew about this included Paul Ryan, that Paul Ryan pulled Matt Gaetz aside and said, your behavior has to change. You can't keep doing this. So not only was it known and reprimanded and never released publicly. This kind of cover-up, which maybe you'd expect that Matt Gaetz would, but he didn't cover it up. He let it go. All the other people held the secret. And this is what connects it to all the other Me Too related difficulties and pains and violations that have happened. It always takes this conspiring group of people to hold these secrets. It's been said about Matt Gaetz since he was in the state legislature in Florida that he did this kind of stuff. When he ran for the congressional seat, people knew it. Congress people would not stand on live camera with Matt Gaetz. They all knew this guy is a time bomb that's gonna blow up. And instead of anyone doing anything about it, the Republicans just let him continue to be the voice rather than saying, as they should about Marjorie Greene Taylor and Boebert in Florida and these others, is that they do not believe that these people's conduct represents them well enough.
Yeah.
When Marjorie
Did you say
Taylor
Boebert
Greene,
just to pick on me?
no, I just like that pronunciation of her name. Boebert is how I think she pronounced it, but I just like doing the Boebert.
Boebert, like Stephen Colbert.
Colbert, yeah. That Marjorie Taylor Greene, the congresswoman from Georgia
14,
went through her Twitter profile and removed all the photos of her with Matt Gaetz. Marjorie Taylor Greene says, this guy's too toxic. This is the QAnon woman. This is the woman who said that you have to commit to your vow or to your oath of office on only a Christian Bible and no other text. This was the woman who has
this is the woman
chased a boy down the street who is trying to bring an end to gun violence. Was that what you were going to say? Sorry,
this is the woman who posted a video last week of her exercising, though, as I said on my own podcast, it's pronounced Ryerse, that is available on all of these same places. I remember do you remember taking the presidential fitness test, Doug, when you were a kid?
I remember cursing the name of Gerald Ford when I was having, because I couldn't do pull-ups because I was too big for my arm
Exactly.
strength.
The pull-ups, this was the point I was making on my podcast, that like you weren't allowed to swing. You had to actually use your arms to pull up. And here's Marjorie Taylor Greene posting a video of herself doing these pull-ups that would not allow her to pass the presidential fitness exam, saying that this is how she's going to fight COVID.
By getting in shape.
Did you?
No, I didn't see it. I don't follow
her exercise routine was the way she was going to fight the coronavirus, and with the hashtag Fire Fauci. So, like, this is a person who Matt Gaetz is too toxic for this. For
her. So, and look,
has she canceled Matt Gaetz?
If that's the question, right? If we were only talking about a one-off, occasional situation with Matt Gaetz, you could say, yeah, okay, there's an occasional bad apple in the barrel, and don't spoil the whole bunch, girl. Just give it one more try. The problem is these secrets are held by the political class all the time.
Yes.
Democrats, independents, Green Party people, Republicans.
Yeah.
It's a problem in our society, and it's a problem in this industry. And I am wanting for Common Good Call to have to say there should be a standard of ethic that, as we say at Vote Common Good, we want our politicians and our voters to take a commitment of love, that they would conduct themselves in a way that is consistent with love in their professional and political work. And if you're behaving in ways, whether those are accusations that are made against Governor Cuomo from New York or Matt Gaetz, fess up, answer honestly, deal with the consequences, and knock this shit off. Like, stop it. that this stuff is passed along, and Matt Gaetz is elevated to a point where he literally thinks that he is presidential candidate material because the former twice impeached, failed re-election president said you can grab women and they let you and they like it. He's like, look, this is not something that costs you anymore. Yep. These are not issues that you have to hide away. The brazen nature and the fact that the religious community supports Matt Gaetz while screaming for family values consistently is the hypocrisy is unbelievable. Now, one more pitch on the Christian nationalism conversation we're going to have, and here's what I've learned.
Yeah.
Because Christian nationalism has almost nothing to do with Christianity, it's a power play to go after Christian narratives and to use those Christian narratives to mobilize voters to be on the side of a political power grab. These people are going to cater to a religious audience without any religion themselves. It's not about being a personal adherent, which is why someone like Stephen Miller, who has no Christian history or background or anything himself, is a total Christian nationalist. And so is Donald Trump. And so is Matt Gaetz. And so is a personally confessing Christian person like Marjorie Taylor Greene. They all can clump together because it's not about living up to any ethic. And when you take a Christian claim and don't connect it with a Christian ethic of honesty, truthfulness, one anotherness, and love and care for all people in our society, that's a really dangerous substitution. It's like having fat-free chips. You know they're not very good for you. I mean, saturated fat might not be good for you, but that fat-free thing is really bad for you. An ethics-free Christian claim is a really dangerous thing because you get all the identity and none of the ethical obligation. And you just see it over and over. We could rant on about, boy, isn't it similar how in the same period of time, Jerry Falwell Jr. has his own falling out with his own history of the kind of stuff that people would have never tolerated in previous times. So there is this just unbelievable amount going on in our society around all this. And, fortunately in politics, Rob, unlike in business, you can just not elect somebody the next time. When you're a congressperson, you just get, every 2 years. So Matt Gaetz, he's up. Now, whether this guy resigns or just decides not to run for re-election, which is probably what he will do, is say that I'm not going to run. So then that's like, so Cuomo, it looks like, will do something similar, right? This is a way to sort of step away from this. But all of this, and I'm not just being a sexual prude here and saying like, hey, let's hold these guys to some purity moral standard.
No.
Not at all. This is just common level decency and non-orgy related ecstasy rants that you brag about, and people who are your coworkers and the people that are your the leaders of your party as Republicans know about it and don't sanction you. It is, oh my gosh. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Whew.
Well, we got all riled up there.
Yeah, it felt like this guy's got to go Matt Gaetz edition of the Politics Podcast.
I think we need to bring that back. And look, from our early comments here that, you end up talking about the things as preachers do that are closest to them. Yeah, this is part of the thing. It's not because especially white males that are in positions of power, using that to cover up this kind of stuff, that really does get both of us a little specially riled up, right? I've spent my life watching people do this kind of thing and get away with it. And then people wring their hands and cry out, and then leader after leader after leader doesn't say a thing. Yep. Just holding the secrets. I'm telling you, it is, as we mentioned a week ago, if you're not going to have cancel culture, the best way to not have cancel culture is to invoke a confessional culture. Fess up, own up, and then step forward, step back, step aside, step up. I don't know, but why don't you try confessing first, right? Matt Gaetz' new thing, like, I've always paid for my own love life, like no money of someone else's was used. I don't think the problem here is that what bank
you were borrowing
account,
cash
what
from your
bank account,
campaign funds.
Having said that, that representative, remember Hunter, what's the guy's name from California, the big Trump supporter, one of the first guys out, and then he was using money, Duncan Hunter, then he was using his money to pay for his mistress and covering up on his wife. Again, the number of people around Donald Trump who are caught up in this stuff is unbelievable.
Yes.
And just 5 more seconds, the fact that that crowd tends to say that it's Democrats who are part of conspiracies of sex trafficking and sexual endeavor. And that's precisely what they're doing is so classic projection and diversion. Yes. It's just unbelievable.
This is what we've seen over and over and over again throughout the Trump years. And it's continuing now with his followers. It's this projection thing. And I think, tying back to the cancel culture discussion, it fits with that as well. There's a projection of that thing that I'm afraid of. I assume everybody else is afraid of that thing that I am doing. I assume everybody else is doing, and I'm going to hit them on it before they can hit me on it. It's classic projection.
There's a great teaching in the Buddhist tradition that says you see the world as you are, not as the world is. Yeah, Matt Gaetz is probably like, doesn't everybody have these things on their phone? It just so much. Hey, join us again tonight. In just a mere 8 hours, right here on all these same channels. If you're wanting to watch and be part of the Christian nationalism threat webinar, a faithful response for the common good is what we're calling it. So we're going to have a number of people. It'll be a live webinar tonight, April 6th, next week, April 13th, the 20th, and the 27th. Each session will have its own vibe, its own feel. We'd love to have you join us. If you want to be in the Zoom so you can ask questions and engage and look at other people and feel like you're connected to those, you can go to votecommongood.com. You'll find the link right there, and you can sign up, and then you'll get the Zoom link. Or you can watch it on all of these channels. And then we're back here tomorrow with our Faith Day with Stephanie Spalding and Laura Truax, Dominique Gilliard. And then Thursday, Bruce Reyes Chow is going to join us. He's written a book on how kindness can change the world and change us and heal the world. Man. And then we're going to talk a little economics and science on Friday. So a lot going on around the Vote Common Good world. And get yourselves ready, friends, to be invited to engage along the southern border, September to November. We've got a little thing in the works that's going to take us from coast to coast along the border for a personal engagement and experience with the people who have the solutions to how we should be running our border. So a lot going on. Rob, good to see you. Any final words for the good people?
Just encourage everybody to stay engaged, stay positive. Like we've got a lot of work to do, but and there's a lot of reasons to be frustrated.
A lot of reasons. Hey, and think about running for office. And if you are, let us know that you're running for office because we'd love to engage with you and help you. And thanks for everybody who's been involved in the rooms or in the rooms in the chat. Somehow I got chat room in my head right there. Remember when there were chat rooms?
Oh, I love chat rooms back in 1997.
Yeah, chat rooms.
Good times.
There was a flashback right there. Hey, by the way, if you're wondering what I had to go check on here, it wasn't.
I was.
It wasn't intestinal struggles, which could have been. I wouldn't be ashamed. I have a broken water heater that's leaking water in the room right there. And the repair guy is supposed to come, and somebody came and rang our doorbell, which is never rung. And I'm home alone, too, here. And I thought, oh, no, that's the repair guy, and he's going to leave and then never come and fix my water heater. And it wasn't him.
It wasn't him.
No, it was the FedEx guy telling me that my Black Lives Matter yard signs have been delivered.
Fantastic.
We're going to do. We ordered. Hey, if y'all want to think about ordering your own Black Lives Matter yard signs, you can go to a fabulous little website that Vote Common Good is connected with. Mine looks just like that one right there. It's called Signs of Justice. Signs for Justice. Signs of, signs for. Prepositions make a big difference in URLs. Signs for Justice, signsofjustice.com. They sell them in a pack. They're $10 a piece. Encourage you to order some, and then say to your neighbors or put them one out in the street and say, hey, if you'd like one, get one yourself. And we continue to ask people to join in a commentary. I'll tell you, nothing will fire up your neighbors like putting up a Black Lives Matter sign. I promise you that. It remains one of the touchstones of a political, cultural statement that'll get people sort of fired up. So spring is in the air. Yard signs are back. So if that's something you want to do. So anyway, I've got yard signs now that have been delivered to the Pagitt de Casa. Casa de Paz.
Awesome.
All right, friends. Hey, thanks for sticking with us. We'll see you again tonight, tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, Friday morning. If you're not on our email list, go hop on that too. We'd love to see you there. And thanks for being a part of the podcast.